Thanks to those joining me live once again, and to those that be joining me on archive. Trying this again. I don't know. I started the whole thing over again now that the Hangouts situation is fixed, right? And now I got shit playing in my ear. Well, why is shit playing in my ear? I have no idea. Let's just skip this. Let's just pause that. There we go. All right. I don't need to hear myself again 2 seconds later, right? So, um, with that said, guys, at least I did the sound check. Let's get this started. First of all, this is going to be an article about Gorgeous George. Okay, Gorgeous George was an innovator. Gorgeous George changed the game. He impacted the game. Okay, Gorgeous George had an influence in not only professional wrestling, which is obvious that he did, but also had an impact in just entertainment in general. I mean, he changed the course of what it means to be a heel, what it means to sell something. Okay, to be a quote unquote bad guy, but be the guy at the same time. No longer was the heel the snarly, bad guy that just does, cusses the crowd out and makes the good guy look good by getting beat. No, no, he changed the name of the game. What promoters thought sold tickets, all of a sudden they realized, well, there's a whole nother market with this. There's a whole nother market with being a quote unquote bad guy, but if it's sold the right way, if people hate you so much that they're willing to pay to go see you, then that's still business, folks. And Gorgeous George is the guy that did that. Okay, when you see guys talking trash and trying to be pretty, and when you see guys trying to act like they're better than everybody, so they get hated on. All those tactics, they all come from Gorgeous George. All right, he innovated that. Many athletes can remember looking at a Gorgeous George and being inspired, and they just like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali's trash talk was inspired by Gorgeous George. That's why he called himself pretty, and that's why he acted the way he acted. All right. But anyway, let's go ahead and go over this. This is an article. I will not be reading the whole thing, but I'll be reading parts of it that I think really highlight, what it means to be Gorgeous George and who he influenced and how he influenced them. We'll try to get a little animated too, but we'll see. All right. Thanks to everybody that's joining me. Take a moment, thumbs up the video, and hit that notification button. That way you are notified every time D-Style comes on live. All right. We'll do more videos about Gorgeous George, the stories about Gorgeous George, but this is going to be a start of this. An article is a good way to do this. This is called, the article is called, it's from the New York Times, Perfumed, Coiffed, and Grappling with Demons by Dwight Garner. This was from September 18th of 2008. The article's been over 10 years. Gorgeous George, obviously. I mean, it's been more than 60 years since Gorgeous George was on top. All right? It's been a while. First part of the article. I'll be putting the article in the description box about an hour later after I post this on archive, by the way, so you can always go back and read it yourself. Definitely worth the look. All right. I just want to give credit to the writer, of course. First part of the article. We're going to read this first part really quick. There's a strange, funny moment in Bob Dylan's memoir, Chronicles, Volume 1. And oh, please let there be a volume 2, in which he explains how a wink from Gorgeous George, the professional wrestler, changed his life. At the time, Mr. Dylan was still Bobby Zimmerman, stuck in high school in Hibbing, Minnesota. He was performing on a makeshift stage in an armory lobby one day when, Mr. Dylan writes, Gorgeous George roared in like a storm for a match, his blonde curls flowing, and his eyes flashing with moonshine. The pair had a brief, flickering mind meld. Gorgeous George threw the young musician a mighty wink and seemed to mouth the phrase, "You're making it come alive." That message, Mr. Dillon writes, was all the recognition and encouragement I would need for years to come. A musical creation myths go, this is not quite Robert Johnson and a devil down at the crossroads. As John Capuya makes plain in Gorgeous George, his slim, genial new pop biography, the wrestler had similarity, electrifying effect on millions of people in the 1940s and 50s, the early days of television. Professional wrestling was broadcast live across America almost every night. Programmers had few better ideas. And the human orchid, as Gorgeous George called himself, was among the most famous and innovating entertainers alive. The swishy, bottle blonde audiences loved to hate. By 1950, he was making $100,000 a year, as much as Joe DiMaggio pulled in for playing center field for the New York Yankees. The best parts of Mr. Capuya's book detail how Gorgeous George worked his gender-bending, sublimely ridiculous magic night after night in arenas all over the country. The first thing Gorgeous George liked to do when he arrived in a new town for a match was to alert the news media and then head to the nearest women's beauty parlor to tune up his blonde. He modeled his pin-curled hairstyle on those actresses like Betty Grable and Jean Tierney. And he knew that by doing interviews with his head under a hot machine, this in an era when John Wayne represented the masculine ideal, was good hokum. Later at the arena, he'd send a valet out first to spray the ring with perfume and to daily titty up the place. Then an announcer would come out to the pay intercom and intone, "Ladies and gentlemen, Gorgeous George refuses to enter the arena until everyone is standing in a show of respect to the human orchid." He'd emerge to pomp and circumstance and then spend 10 minutes in the ring to furious booing, folding, and refolding his Satan robe, I apologize. Between rounds, he sipped tea from a silver sit. The biggest cheer of the night inevitably arrived when his opponent messed up his hairdo. In professional wrestling lingo, Gorgeous George was not a cleanie, but a meanie. That is, he fought dirty or pretended to. But off stage, Mr. Capuya suggests he was basically a sweetheart, affable, generous, and loyal to his old friends, many of whom he employed. Not a lot is known about Gorgeous George's childhood, and Mr. Capuya, a former editor of Newsweek and the New York Times, who now teaches journalism at the University of Tampa in Florida, skims over it quickly. The future Gorgeous George was born George Wagner in Nebraska in 1915, and he grew up near Houston. His father was a down on his luck house painter. His sickly mother died when he was 17. Mr. Coiffed suspects his subject dropped out of high school. The records have been lost. But while in school, George did become skilled at one thing: amateur wrestling. He soon began wrestling professionally as a handsome, dark-haired good guy. Eventually, with help and inspiration from his first wife, Betty, he got the idea to dye his hair and dirty up his act, and people began to take notice. Young Bobby Zimmerman wasn't the only aspiring entertainer held rat by Gorgeous George. Muhammad Ali, James Brown, John Waters have all cited him as yay saying inspiration. Gorgeous George himself, of course, had borrowed some of his moves from earlier bad boy wrestlers, and probably Mr. Capulla suggests from a generation of flamboyant black preachers. Mr. Capulla relates Gorgeous George's story to enthusiasm and good cheer, but his Franks and Beans pro style will make some readers squirm. He's the kind of writer who won't use the word like arena if a phrase like mat palace or biceps bin or pop hall is handy. Chapters have grown their titles: King Strut. Mr. Capulla is better known straightforward narrative, social analysis, his strengths to live up to subtitles, continuation. And Gorgeous George created American pop culture. He's not a lot better for putting it straight entertainers' hijinks in context. Though he does not write this. In a sport in which two barely clothed and oiled men try to mount each other, there's a bit of a homoerotic subtext. Towards the end of his career, the demons had chased Gorgeous George, caught up with him, and pummeled him. He became an alcoholic. He lost his looks. He had his stripper period. Women claiming to have had children with him began climbing out of the woodwork. He died of a heart attack in 1963 at the age of 48, just 2 years after his retirement. Right? You can read the rest of the article. I'll be posting the link. You could also search it. Interesting stuff. All right. First of all, having somebody come out and say, like, George ain't coming out, okay, to all you are standing on your feet. To everybody standing and showing respect, the champ ain't coming out. All right? Could you just imagine in the 40s? Could you imagine this? Like, stand your ass up or the champ ain't coming out. All right? And look at this fucking stinking ass ring. Okay, perfume this shit up. All right? Fucking shit stinks. I mean, this dude took his craft serious. This guy, okay, would go to beauty parlor, okay, beauty salons, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Dude would show up. Oh, look at me. Like, I'm fixing my hair. He knew the media was going to show up. He'd make it clear, I'm coming here, all right? All right? They're curling up his hair and shit, and he's like, get out of here. Mr. Gorgeous George, what do you have to say about your opponent tonight? Like, I could just picture the fucking media back then. All right. I'm just worried about my hair. You know what I mean? I'm just, every time you see fighters today, with that comb my hair, and, it does remind me a lot, believe it or not, of boxer Adrian Broner. Like, this reminds me a lot of this, right? Obviously, Adrian Broner was an actual professional boxer. You know what I mean? But there was, first of all, this is in an era that was not politically correct, right? Like, it's clear what he was doing. I mean, what he was doing was, fucking with dudes' insecurities, right? That's what he was. That's what he was doing, right? I mean, there's a lot of dudes out there that just get insecure about the whole gay thing, and this is an era where they would yell homophobic slurs. He never said he was gay. I think he would come out to some hot valets, actually. Dude dude was metrosexual all the way. But at the end of the day, I mean, he was playing that role, and he knew he was going to garner a lot of hate. Like, he knew it. He knew, like they're going to go like for the straight dude over the guy that's probably gay. I mean, that's basically what it was. Okay. And even if it wasn't that far, just the whole, there was a lot of feminine things to it, you know, like the whole fixing my hair, don't mess my hair up, and, you know, stuff like that. Right. And then on top of that, once all that was passed, I mean, he was the first dirtiest player in the game. It wasn't Ric Flair, right? It wasn't Buddy Rogers. It was Gorgeous George, right? Even though it's all an act, the reason they have rules in wrestling, well, there's several reasons. One, they needed rules because, you know, the commission did see it as an actual sport, believe it or not. Commission got its cut, right? And in case a wrestler didn't want to play ball, they can actually make it a real wrestling match, right? So they did have rules implemented for that, but also mainly, especially around this era, once we're getting to the 50s, okay, and, you know, we're kind of a little away from the Lou Thesz thing. If not during the Lou Thesz, I'll have to double check that. But, you know, we're kind of at the tail end of it being considered real or whatever, right? And the reason you had rules is for someone can break them, right? Like the heel would break rules. When the ref wasn't looking, he would poke the good guy in the eyes, you know, the baby face. That would make the crowd boo, right? When you know, the heel would do something illegal, wouldn't get caught, you know, and then the good guy would do something illegal, and then he would get called out by it, right? And that would piss off the crowd. Right? I mean, that would just piss the crowd off. You know, like, that's unfair. You know, but they were working the crowd. They knew what they were doing. Gorgeous George knew what he was doing when he was low blowing opponents when the ref wasn't looking, or raking the eyes, or, you know, like, he knew what he was doing. You know, people don't like to see cheaters win. And here he was cheating and winning. Here was cheating and being the man. Here he was cheating and being the highest, you know that saying, cheaters never prosper. He was prospering. Gorgeous George was prospering. You got to look at this in context of the era. Nowadays, everybody cheats in wrestling, right? Like, everybody does things behind the ref's back, so there's really no need for a heel or a face at that point, right? But back in those days, it was the heels that did that. The heels are the ones that would throw illegal punches to the face. Now now they don't call it a wrestling match anymore. Right? Now they call it a fight. So now they punch in wrestling. I mean, it's why? I don't know. Why even have a quote unquote street fight if you allow punches in a regular wrestling match, right? Like, well, what's the point? The heels would punch, and the refs would warn them, but the crowd would boo because in wrestling, you don't punch. That's illegal. Kick them in the knee. That's illegal. It would get a good crowd reaction. That's what the heels did. The heels did that. And when the heel was getting away with it too much, then the face would throw a punch, and the crowd would roar because it was justice. That's what it was. But that was an art form that Gorgeous George started. Hey, what if I punch you in the face? Well, that's not legal in wrestling, George. So have the ref give me a stern warning, but continue the match. And when the other guy is hurt because I was punching him in the face, the crowd would think that's so unfair. He got away with something he shouldn't do. Gorgeous George started that. And to be honest with you, if they still follow that model, there'll be far more successful right now than they are with wrestling. Because what you have with wrestling now is it's no longer a wrestling match. Now it's fight. So basically, you're giving them what UFC gives them for real. So what's the point, right? I mean, a lot of people see it that way. It's not the same thing, but a lot of people see it that way. Whereas if it's a wrestling match and punches are illegal, then you have something to give the heel to get a thing called heat. Gorgeous George was the guy who really amped up heat, right? It's this dude had to be escorted out by police, all right? I saw somebody put the do not, okay, insult Gorgeous George by comparing him to Fandango, all right? Fandango is he's not even the, I don't know the word for it, but he's nowhere near he's not the innovator. He can't work a crowd worth of shit, all right? So like, I don't even want to hear that. Yes, different eras, but what Gorgeous George did was he did some amazing shit, and like Fandango didn't inspire anybody. Fandango was an idiot, okay, that was just dancing with some broad, okay, and he would dance, to quote unquote annoy people, but that's just, it's not as easy as that. It's more complicated than that. Gorgeous George, all right, used everything that was said about wrestling and yamped it up, right? Well, what do people say about wrestling? Oh, man, like, especially ignorant people. What do they say? Oh, like, two dudes, even they still say it about the UFC today. Two dudes grappling around is gay, right? That's what people say. So what did he do? Well, he started going to beauty salons, and like, he didn't say he was gay, right? Probably had sprinkles on him and shit, had curls, and, had feminine, kind of the way he would walk, and, just until he started actually beating the shit out of his opponent, then things changed. Like, he knew when to switch that, when to use that switch, right? When to become menacing in the ring and start making people really hate him. Because there was a little bit of a quote unquote hustle in the story arc, the short story arc of Gorgeous George, from when he showed up to a town, right? It would go from, he would go from 0 to 60 once that match started. Once the charades were done, once they fucked up his hair, once he got embarrassed, once the crowd got the laughs in because the face is embarrassing him in the ring, and then bam, he would start cheating, he would start getting the upper hand, the crowd started booing, they started hating him, right? All of a sudden, the flamboyant guy was gone. Now he's just a menacing fucking heel that's cheating in the fucking match and doing everything possible to get that W. I mean, that he knew how to do it. He understood how to do it. And he innovated that. And that formula worked for decades to come. For decades to come, it worked. Okay, Ric Flair, different type of personality, but he kind of stole the formula in the ring for sure. Okay, the flamboyant attitude, he stole that for sure. He also stole from Buddy Rogers as well, by the way, right? Which is important. This is why it's important to know, like, a lot of these characters, because these guys get lost. You ask your average person today who Gorgeous George is, they have no fucking clue. Yet everything that they see in sports today, and the fighters that, just, trying to trash talk before a match, and, all this other crap, all that started with Gorgeous George, okay? If you ask me, Floyd Mayweather did the Gorgeous George thing himself. He made people hate him so much that they watched not to see him fight, but to see him lose. Sure, he had his fans as well, right? But that a large majority of people wanted to see him lose. He was working people. He knew what he was doing, right? He knew exactly what he was doing. And when a lot of people question what he wears and why does he have those high boots and those tight pants and like, well, why is he wearing that that fucking fruity shit? Well, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. I think it's the same shit. I honestly do. Adrian Broner with a comb my hair and like, with his feminine, okay. I've been calling this for years. A lot of, feminine traits that he has, okay. Almost the same thing as Gorgeous George. All right. A B, you know what I mean, or whatever the fuck he would say. All right. Everybody knows I beat that boy. Like okay. Like that's and by the way, that's totally a heel thing to do. Like one of the things heels would do, right? Especially in the 40s, the 50s, and onwards. Like they should do it to this day. It's just lie. Like just tell an alternative fact. Like just say I won that match, and then people watching just get mad. Like the crowd gets mad. Like, no, he's lying. That's not even true. He lost that match. Like, but you would just lie. Like I've never been beaten. I really won that match. Everybody knows I won that match, and that's something that, of course, in the Gorgeous George era was a thing. And that's what heels did. They would lie. Of course they did. They were bad guys. Why would they tell the truth? All right? All right? And man, did it work with a gullible face. The gullible face was a perfect matchup for Gorgeous George because it was like frustrating. You'll get a gullible, you know what I mean by gullible face, right? Like the dude that's a good guy, but he's just gullible. Like Gorgeous George goes to shake his hand, and there he goes. Like everybody knows, everybody in the arena knows, Gorgeous George is gonna slap him or kick him in the leg or in the midsection or something. But here, the gullible face needs to be a good guy and shake his hand. Right? Happen all the time. And people get mad. Like, why did he do that? You know what he's gonna do, but it would make people react. And that was the point. That's what working a match is. When you have the crowd in the palm of your hand and their attention is on that match and they have something invested in that match, that's what working a match is. That's what telling a story in the ring means. Okay. Working a match is not how good you could do a suplex, okay, and take a clothesline. That's just not what working a match is. Gorgeous George knew how to work a match. Okay. He knew how to work a crowd. And he was a master at it. And he influenced a lot of people. Sure, everyone had their own flavor doing it. Right? Not everybody did it in the I'm going to act like I'm gay, but I'm not gay way. Like, it's just not everybody does that. Everybody has their own thing. But you do have to have some type of a flamboyant attitude in order to sell that. You do need charisma in order to sell that. Right? And you do need, to create a world, right, where the things the heel does stand out, right? There has to be things that good guys don't do and bad guys do. And there has to be you have to tell a story arc where eventually the good guy has had enough and he breaks the rules too. But it's only because it's gotten to a point where it's just getting ridiculous now. It's time to put Gorgeous George in his place. Right? That's when it matters. So I just thought this was an interesting article. I think the story of Gorgeous George is interesting. Make no mistake about it, man. This guy was on top for a long time and nobody cared. There was not one dude that I know of anyway Okay, that was like, nah, I got to be the man. Right? No, everybody was fine working with Gorgeous George because he was bringing in bank. He was filling out arenas. He was bringing in the seats. It was sink or swim back then, folks. It was sink or swim. If you sold, it showed. If you were over, whether as a heel or a face, it showed. And the promoter didn't leave a guy there like a Roman Reigns today. Okay, just because they liked him, but if the crowd didn't like him, sorry, bro, you're done. Laters. Peace out. All right. This is D Style. I'm out, guys. Peace.